This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about the economy, government, and the elections. This is going to be one of the nastiest, economies is going to be contentious, and these elections are going to be vicious because there's so many issues. And FYI, so we're going to talk about elections, but more importantly, the law, because that's really what it comes down to, because we elect officials to enforce the law. And just FYI, you may or may not know, I don't like politics. Politics is a dirty, dirty game. My poor dad ran for lieutenant governor, and I saw it from the inside. It is a nasty game. I don't know why anybody would do it. And my dad also represented the teachers' unions, which... Well, I won't say anything. Anyway, today is a friend, Rodney Glassman. He's running for Attorney General. He's a neighbor. I've known him for years. And every year he hits me up for a campaign contribution. And so I give him the campaign, but I have no idea what they do because I just want to get them off my back and move on, But I got to know Rodney over all the years, and so I said, I better go hear what he has to say. And, Rodney's an Air Force guy, which I'll forgive him for. But anyway, he's tall, strong, possibly future governor if he keeps his nose clean. But when I went to his fundraisers is where Rodney spoke, and I had no idea what an attorney general did. I'm like, holy mackerel, and I wonder why am I so upset about the economy when our laws are being not enforced. And that's what the Attorney General of the state of Arizona does. And God knows we have so many problems that are, the laws are not being enforced, the police are being attacked, and we have attorney generals who've never had a job. Do you know what I mean? They're not really attorneys. I mean, they went to law school, but they work for the government. And we've had so I never knew any of this. I'm standing at these fundraisers to listen to Rodney's talk. So I have him on the Rich Dad Radio program. I don't think we ever had politicians, have we?
Other than Donald Trump. Well, but that was pre-politician Trump.
Right. That's why we'll forgive him for that. So anyway, listen to Rodney and all this stuff. And so this, I promise him, I'll get you on my radio show. We're going to talk about international issues more than anything else also. But they also recur in the state of Arizona. So please know we're going to do our best to be an international program because we are international. But more importantly, if and when he gets elected and he doesn't keep his promises, I'll drag him back on this radio show and take him over the coals, as they say, because you got to hold people accountable. And that's the problem with politicians, as you know, they can say all they want, nobody holds them accountable. So, Mr. Glassman, Rodney Glassman, thank you for coming to the Rich Dad Radio Show.
Robert, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Quickly, please give us your background and how you become an attorney and why you want to be an attorney general.
Well, thank you for that. As you shared a bit, I am an Air Force prosecutor. I've prosecuted drug dealers and financial crimes and protected victims of sexual assault. I'm now a major serving in the United States Air Force JAG Corps, a reservist, but assigned on the active duty side. So I work alongside the active duty members and run the legal offices there.
Fulton, JAG stands for Judge Advocate General.
Yes.
When I was in the Marine Corps, they came to visit me several times. I understand them. Isn't DeSantis, he was a Navy SEAL prosecutor?
I think he was a Navy JAG, actually. So there are
attached to the SEALs, something like that. Because he claims to be attached to the SEAls.
And a conservative showing how it's done. But I'll tell you, Robert, I am also a private attorney, as you know.
So when I was at your events, I didn't understand what an attorney general did, between a private attorney and a government attorney, much less a JAG. I was court martialed twice, and they're pretty nasty guys. Thank God they didn't get me. But anyway, so Rodney, what does the district attorney do? Because you came from the private sector, came from the military first. Then what kind of private sector experience do you have? So
in addition to being an Air Force prosecutor and now running active duty legal offices as a major in the JAG Corps Reserve, I'm also a private attorney in town at law firm Buse Gilbert McGroder.
And what do you guys, you specialize in anything?
Well, I practice business law, and high stakes litigation. So I work for companies like U-Haul, Mobile Mini, NASCAR, and also work for business leaders suing for contract fraud. And frankly, I'm running for Attorney General because I know the job of the Attorney General is to protect you and your family, and frankly, my family, from the government.
Amen, brother. Amen. I mean, I just can't stand how they're just the government's just taking more of our freedoms and money away.
And it's this is an international show, so I know probably when most people hear protect you from the government, the first thing we all think of is the federal government, because no matter where you're coming from, whether you flew through the United States and you were required to wear a mask on the plane, or if you just took your family to Disneyland or Disney World and you happened to take a bus to get there, in the park, you had to wear a mask. That was all courtesy of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and federal overreach. But additionally, in Arizona and across the country, the number one issue that we're facing right now is illegal immigration. The laws in the United States were the same today as they were when my wife and I graduated from law school in the late 2000s. If you came here illegally, you're to be arrested, you're to be incarcerated, and you're to be barred. But we now live in a country where if you come here illegally, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rent you hotel rooms in Scottsdale.
This Kamala is the one with Prince Charles or something, the future king. Anyway, another leadership of incompetence. Anyway, I mean, Camila or Kamala, does it make any difference?
Call her anything but president. That's what I'm afraid of.
So, but anyway, this is the point here. And most district attorneys and or attorney generals, they come from the government service.
We live in a state right now where the attorney general has never had a career in the private sector. And as you know, I'm running to be the Republican nominee for Attorney General. My website's rodneyglassman.com. And we're in a 6-way Republican primary where I'm the only one who wrote a check to Donald Trump. I'm the only one that could tell you the name of my last 3 paying law clients. And if you go to a doctor or a lawyer, you ask, who else have you done work for? And that's the problem. You have to have reasonable expectations of people based on their history.
Right. And here in Arizona, or along the southern border especially, we have this huge thing called the border wall. I own a lot of property down in Bisbee and Sierra Vista and down in that area, which is right on the border. I couldn't believe it, Rodney. I mean, the doors are wide open. They have kids, like these, I don't know how old they are, probably 18 to 25 maybe. They rent not U-Haul ones with 8-passenger vans. And the illegals just stand in line. Nobody touches them. They climb in the van. And they get paid $1,000 a head, so an 8-passenger van might have 15 people in it. So the kid's paying $15K to drive them north, and nobody stops them. And the police are standing right there.
We need to build the wall. We need to secure the border. I was just down with the sheriff of Cochise County in Sierra Vista, so southern Arizona, and it's a catastrophe. We're under an invasion as a country, and you go down and you visit the border, and you see Barack Obama's wall, because he built some wall, and then right next to it, 10 feet higher, you see President Trump's wall. But then you see what's happened because of Joe Biden's executive order. You see materials that were purchased with our tax dollars for more wall that aren't allowed to be installed. You see a dirt road that our Border Patrol has to drive down with a 1/4 mile of decomposed granite next to the dirt road that Joe Biden won't let the contractors spread to keep our guys safe. And then you see stadium lighting all along the wall that Joe Biden won't let them plug in to keep our Border Patrol safe, to keep these people from coming in our country illegally.
So that's what you mean when you said my job is to protect you from our government.
It's from the federal government, but here in Arizona and across the country, it's also about protecting citizens from the state. We live in a state where, as you know, it was the government that shut down the restaurants. It was the government that shut down the gyms. It was the government that shut down the churches. And the only person that could have said no was the elected Attorney General.
And that's the office you're running.
And that is the office. And even at the city level, because we have visitors from all around the world in our community. Our police officers, as you know, are under attack.
Well, let's just stick within the police right away. So we're the border with immigrants coming across, and we have this. I don't even know who our attorney. I'm so apolitical, you know. I mean, I don't care who's going to church, who's not going to church. Really, it's up to you. But I don't even vote a lot of the times. I'm so sick of the government. But what was this guy? Who's our attorney general now?
Mark Brnovich.
And what was his background?
Government.
I mean, he hasn't had a job yet.
It's you get who you hire.
I'm just giving you a break here.
No, I appreciate it.
How big is the Attorney General's office? How many attorneys are there?
The Attorney General's office in Arizona is the largest law office in the state. 425 attorneys and 800 support staff.
No egos in there, huh?
And what's interesting, Robert, is, and most people don't realize this, the Attorney General provides all the legal services for every state agency. So whether it's the Department of Revenue or the Department of Gaming or the Real Estate Commissioner or the Department of Health Services with all their mandates, or if you have a family, the Department of Education, none of those state agencies have their own attorneys. And so who you elect is the person in charge of all those at-will employees. And you saw in Virginia recently, the Attorney General there got elected and immediately fired the entire Civil Rights Division because they were woke, going left. And that's why you get to hire the attorney you want as your Attorney General.
Only had one leg going left, right? Anyway, this is, again, I'll acknowledge my ignorance. Since my father ran for office in the 70s, I wanted nothing to do with it. So when I go to Rodney's fundraisers, to me, you do a great job of educating people rather than making promises you can't keep. You know what I mean? Well, you explain what your job is. I never knew any of this stuff. You're the biggest law firm in the state. You provide all the legal services for all these organizations, which you have too many of, big government or big state government.
A disappointing fact I'm going to share with you, Robert, because the 2020 election had issues. There was fraud in the 2020 election. And we have laws on the books right now in Arizona and across the country. You have to have 2 valid forms of ID to register to vote. Who's in charge of enforcing that? The Attorney General. Ballot harvesting is prohibited. Who's in charge of enforcing that? The Attorney General.
What is ballot harvesting?
Ballot harvesting is where you go and collect strangers' ballots, sometimes even filling them out, and then dump them into a drop box in the middle of the night.
So the rumors that there were dead people voting, was that it was just rumor?
There was a woman in Scottsdale that pled guilty of it, I believe. It is
she was dead and she's still voting.
It's a real thing. But who's in charge of all those, enforcing all those rules that are already on the books? It's the Attorney General. And that's a real issue. And that's why we need someone who wants to do the job. As you know, a former Marine or always a Marine, Air Force, the old question they ask you in the military, what's your favorite job? The one I have now. And unfortunately, in Arizona, we had an Attorney General that was looking for his next job instead of the one he had now. And that's why it's important to have someone who's living in the moment. And as you know, we have kids in the schools. So when I talk about school choice, I mean it. We work in the private sector. So when I talk about taxes, we mean it. And we live in the city of Phoenix, which is, their police officers are under attack. So when I talk about that, we mean it. And that's why it's important to have someone who's a real conservative fighter in this job.
Well, when you talk about the police are under attack, what's really happening? Well,
2 things are happening. In Arizona and across the country, there's a term called qualified immunity. It's a legal precedent. And a legal precedent means that one judge can change their mind and it goes away. It's not law. And that qualified immunity is critical because when a police officer has to make split-second decisions to protect our families, right, qualified immunity protects them. So as long as they're following the rules of their department, they can't be sued civilly.
Correct.
In other words, they can make split-second decisions about protecting our homes without worrying about being sued for theirs. And there's cities across the state and across the country. Colorado's already done this. New Mexico's already done this, where they're trying to get rid of qualified immunity because they don't want people signing up to be police officers. They don't want to keep our community safe. I'm advocating for the codification, meaning a law, to make qualified immunity law in Arizona to protect our police officers. And that's why in a 6-way Republican primary, every law enforcement association in the state that's endorsed has endorsed my candidacy because they want an attorney general
Fight for them.
to protect them from the government too.
Right. And again, that's for your campaign speeches. And the attorney general to protect you from our government.
12 words.
Right. And then that's because you enforce the law.
Enforce the law and also make sure that the law is working and being interpreted for the people, not for government.
So a couple of more minutia items, not minutia, they're big items. What is this Title 44 or something on the border that they want to change? And what is that?
Title 42, executive order. It keeps people from coming in illegally. And Biden, you have to remember the Democratic game plan, and you can look at New York. You can look at New York City to know they've shown us their cards. They want people to come here illegally so that they can vote. They're already letting people that are illegal vote in New York. So we know what the game plan is.
So you don't need citizenship in New York anymore.
You don't, and you spend a lot of time traveling, I know. When you go to the airport and you try to go through TSA, when you used to have to wear the mask, you show them your ID, and then they make you pull down the mask, and you're very well known. So maybe they only harass you 3 times instead of the normal 6 like they do the rest of us. But it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down, it's up. If you come to the United States illegally under Joe Biden, you get arrested briefly. You get a ticket. Not an ID, nothing with your picture on it. You get a ticket. And an illegal person in the United States, because of Joe Biden, can take that illegal ticket to the same airport that's harassing you, the same TSA person that's making you go up and down with your mask. And all they do is show them that piece of paper, and they let them get on a plane. And they let them fly out of Phoenix or wherever they are and fly to New York so they can vote, or fly to Seattle so they can protest. That is what's going on right now.
Is the game plan to stack the deck with human beings?
That is exactly the Democratic game plan. And I'm not going out on a ledge here. You already see them doing it in New York. They're letting them vote. This is what they want. They want as many illegals here as possible. But the challenge is, and the problem is, and you mentioned the wall. We know, and you know, what happens at the border doesn't stop.
No,
at the
that's
border.
What I'm saying. I was just there last week.
Yeah, it ends up here. We're today in Scottsdale, Arizona, and in December, 1.7 million fentanyl pills were seized right here in Scottsdale, not at the border. So it impacts everything.
Isn't the Sheriff Mark Lamb or something like that?
Sheriff Mark Lamb's from Pinal County. He's between here and there, and he's the one that educated me. He said, what happens at the border doesn't stop at the border. It ends up right here. It's our schools. It's our public safety. It's our hospitals that are being taxed because of this administration, and that's why we need an attorney general that's going to fight them.
And FYI, Sarah and I are going to have a little Rich Dad radio show on drugs, because it's big business. We can talk about real estate all we want, but fentanyl and opioids are big, big business.
Just one can kill a child.
Yeah, it's big. They're not doing it because they like pills. They do it because there's demand for it, and they're supplying the demand. And once again, last week, I was down in Bisbee, Arizona, where I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I cannot believe what's happening down there. I mean, it is shocking. And what's shocking also, the most disturbed me was how, I love Bisbee, I love people, how far left they are. They are really they've really drunk the Kool-Aid. Really drank the Kool-Aid. And I'm going, holy, how did this happen? How did we go so far socialist Marxist so fast? If I could give a plug, that's why I wrote Capitalist Manifesto, my latest book, because it comes through our school system. When we come back, we're talking more to Rodney Glassman. He's my neighbor in the same neighborhood. And we're talking about the Office of the Attorney General for the state of Arizona. When Rodney and I live in the same neighborhood, and he's a politician. We generally don't have politicians, but I never knew what an attorney general did. That's how out of the loop I'm at. But the reason the attorney general is important, because the attorney general enforces the laws.
This episode is brought to you by 8 Sleep. Good sleep is the ultimate game changer and nature's best medicine. Consistent good sleep can help reduce the likelihood of serious health issues, decrease the risk of heart disease, lower blood pressure, and even reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. Yet, still more than 30% of Americans struggle with sleep, and temperature is one of the main causes of poor sleep. In Arizona, where I live, it can get hot. However, now I'm falling asleep in record time, faster than I have before, all thanks to my 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover. The Pod Pro cover by 8 Sleep is the most advanced solution on the market for thermoregulation. It pairs dynamic cooling and heating with biometric tracking. You can add the cover to any mattress and start sleeping as cool as 55 degrees or as hot as 110. The temperature of the cover will adjust each side of the bed based on your sleep stages, biometrics, and bedroom temperature, reacting intelligently to create optimal sleeping environment. The result? 8 Sleep users fall asleep up to 32% faster, reduce sleep interruptions by 40%, and get overall more restful sleep. The Pod Pro cover by 8 Sleep is so popular, it has garnered attention from CEOs, high performers such as Olympic gold medalist Red Gerard, and top CrossFit athletes, including 2021 fitness man on earth Justin Medeiros. They're all powered by 8 Sleep to make the most of their workouts and recovery, because good sleep is the ultimate game changer. Go to 8sleep.com/richdad to check out the Pod Pro cover and save $150 off Pod Pro and Pod Pro cover at checkout. 8 Sleep ships to the USA, Canada, and the UK.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about this upcoming election. And we have a neighbor, my personal neighbor and good friend, Rodney Glassman, and he's always running for office. But as I said earlier in the program, I don't pay attention to politics. It's a nasty game. Everybody's lying as far as I'm concerned. That's why I stay away from it. But since I donated, for full disclosure, donated to Rodney and all this, and I said, well, I better hear what he has to say. So I show up, and I listen to what he's saying. I said, man, I didn't know any of this stuff. Because most of the time, campaigns, I promise you to do this, I promise you to do that. But Rodney was actually educating people why the Attorney General's office is so important. And this is not just about Arizona. This is about the world. We're not enforcing our laws. The laws are being broken. And nobody cares. Nobody cares. They just let it go. So that's why I agreed to have Rodney come on. Again, for full disclosure, he is running for Attorney General as a Republican in the state of Arizona. And we're talking about what does the Attorney General do, which I never knew, which is the largest law firm in this state. And most Attorney Generals have never had an office. I mean, they don't work for law firms. They work for the government. And so naturally, they have to stay on the side that the bread is buttered on. That's the way it is. So the most important question, Rodney, is this election, not only in the state of Arizona, but nationally. Was it honest, fair, and whatchamacallit? What do you want to call it?
And Robert, as we saw, the only people that day after day and hour after hour kept saying this is the most cleanest, fairest election in the history of our country were who? The liberal Democrat media. And my wife has taught me, I've been married 12 years now, no matter how many times I say the same thing over and over and over again, it doesn't make it true. And that's the joke of this last election. You had legislators across the country and judges across the country, liberal judges, relaxing the voting rules. Here in Arizona, we had 2 valid forms of ID to register to vote. No one was enforcing it. Ballot harvesting, people collecting ballots from strangers and retirement communities and dumping them into boxes, dead people voting, all of this. And the person whose job it is to enforce the law, the Attorney General, was asleep at the wheel here in Arizona, other places. They were trying to double our state income taxes. The teachers union was dumping $25 million of out-of-state funding. And my record is clear. Of the 6 Republicans that are running for Attorney General, I'm the only one that supported President Trump, that wrote him a check, that did not want Joe Biden in the White House. And so we need someone who's going to push back on all these things, because they're just going to keep trying to do it again and again and again. And now they're reaping the benefits of what they did because they're controlling the government.
So the election was not fair and all that stuff. It was criminal. But why do they do it? I mean, I was talking to John McGregor last night. And I said, why do they do it? His only opinion is they think they're smarter than we are.
And I would say they do it because they
get away with it.
Can.
But why?
Because there's no consequences and there's no accountability. Remember, they're doing this to take our stuff, to take our freedoms, to shut down our businesses so that they can have control. Control.
They think they're above the law. And that's what John and I were talking about. They're so arrogant. Like I meet these college professors. I mean, they're flat broke, most of them, but they think they're smarter than Jesus. I'm going, oh my God, how arrogant. I just can't believe it. And then here in Arizona, another thing was that Proposition 208, so that they want to raise everybody's tax.
Double the income taxes.
And that was pushed by a teacher union.
Out-of-state teachers union spent $25 million. It went to the Arizona Supreme Court. One of my opponents was on the Supreme Court at the time. And believe it or not, what they said was, we will wait to determine if this is constitutional only if the voters pass it. And because they left it on there, the teachers union spent $25 million out of Washington State. 50,000 teachers were going door to door. And if you believe the numbers, and I'll say it again because I know you and I probably don't, if you believe the numbers, we still only fell short. President Trump in Arizona still only might have fell short by 10,500 votes, which in politics is a 5,250 vote swing, and $25 million moves 5,000 votes. So because of them, many of the things that happened in Arizona happened. The only person that could have done something about it, the Attorney General, but we're lucky, Robert, because Governor Ducey and the legislature did just pass a flat tax here in Arizona. It's now the new law. That same teachers union collected signatures to try to refer that to the ballot for 2022 as the wedge issue. But the good news is one of the guys I'm running against, that retired judge, he quit the court to now run for Attorney General to get a $90,000 a year law job because he's never had one before. But what's exciting about that is because he's gone, the new court, guess what they did? They proactively tossed it off the ballot. So we do not have to worry about it in 2022.
I understand that that's getting into minutia. I mean,
it's terrible.
My poor dad. If you read Capitalist Manifesto, which just came out, the opening chapter is against the NEA, National Education Association, labor unions, and Marx was the guy that said, "Workers of the world unite." And I didn't know this until I went to military school, and they had us read the Communist Manifesto. I went, "Oh my God, school teachers are communists," and that's why. And not that they're bad people. Don't get me wrong. I see economics like communism or capitalism. They're more like economic religions or philosophies. So a person can be, Jewish or Christian or Buddhist and still be good people. But once you adopt an economic philosophy, that's when you become either a capitalist, fascist, or communist. And I'm at school in New York in 1965 reading the Communist Manifesto and went, oh my God, family's communist. Workers of the world unite. And Rich Dad was my Rich Dad was my friend's father. He was against labor unions. And my poor dad was the head of the teachers union. And I'm catching hell at home because I went to my Rich Dad's restaurant and hotel business to prevent a strike. And my poor dad, the head of a teachers union, just attacked me. He says, "You're a scab, you wrote the lines and all this." I'm going, I'm 17 years old. I had no idea what he was talking about. And so what you're saying now that these teachers unions are going around trying to raise taxes on everybody in Arizona, but guys like me asleep at the wheel have no idea what they're up to. Why are the teachers unions doing this?
It's another wedge issue to get out the Democrat vote. And unless we have an attorney, that head lawyer, the one that's supposed to protect us from the government.
What's his name?
Unless we elect a new one in 2022 who's going to protect us from the government, RodneyGlassman.com. We end up with more of the same because they're going to keep doing it. They're trying to do it across the country. But
why?
Because
why would somebody vote to double your own taxes?
$25 million in marketing. They talk about the teachers instead of talking about the kids, instead of talking about the family.
Oh, the ones that are teaching gender bending
family.
and all that stuff.
And when it comes to,
theory.
we've talked about elections and we've talked about immigration, but these attorney generals across the country, the 50 elected attorney generals, are also the ones that can protect kids and families from the government too, because as you know, right here in Arizona, there are school districts. If a parent goes to a school board meeting, they put them in a secret dossier. And at the federal level, Joe Biden and the Department of Justice, they now call parents, they call them domestic terrorists. That's what our federal government calls parents that go to school board meetings, domestic terrorists. And we need to fight that. And we need to have an attorney general that's going to protect families from the government when it comes to rogue school boards trying to push critical race theory, trying to push mask mandates, trying to push human sexuality on kindergartners. It's wrong. It's wrong. And it needs to be stopped. And who do you call? You call your attorney.
Well, again, the question is why? So I wasn't too far off back in 1965 after I read Communist Manifesto that most school teachers are communists. You know what I'm saying? They don't know the difference. And that's not bad people.
You just hit it on the head, Robert. I think the reason that we have some of the issues we have is because people don't know the difference. And that's why
they have not read the Communist Manifesto.
They're so busy trying to scrape by these days because of Joe Biden's inflation, because of Joe Biden's gas prices.
No, it's Putin. I mean, who cut down the XL pipeline? Who shut all the oil fields off? Who's causing the inflation in America? Not Putin. Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats. They're the ones killing this country. But how come we can't see it?
We need, and that's why the attorney general, your lawyer, no matter what you want to do as a businessman, and most of the people that are listening to this are business people and are engaged in the private sector in the economy. When you have a challenge, when you have an issue, when you have a competitor that's pissing you off, or when you want to do a new deal, who do you call? You call your attorney to help put all that together.
But if the attorney general is already biased, swinging hard left, you almost have no prayer then, do you?
You don't. And that's why, Robert, at this point, we are leading in the polls. We are leading in the fundraising.
And you're saying all the police, not all, but 10 police.
Every police association across the state, from Flagstaff to all across the state, all the way down the Phoenix sergeants and lieutenants, our sergeants and lieutenants,
right.
They've all endorsed the same candidate in the 6-way primary. They've all endorsed my campaign, Rodney Glassman, because I'm committed to protecting them from the government too, and that's what matters. It's about keeping us safe. It's terrible.
You know, Rodney, Marines are not the highest IQ in the military services, you know. I just don't know why people would be traitors to our country. I just cannot understand that. You know, I have 2 tours in Vietnam. How can they be traitors to our own country? And that's the school teachers' unions.
Well, I'll tell you, Robert, and you probably know this. I went to school in Southern Arizona. I used to be a Democrat.
I'll pray for you tonight.
And it was June 16th, 2015. It was June 16th, 2015, the day I saw President Trump come down that escalator, that I registered Republican and got active and raised him money and contributed to his campaign, because what I saw was a private sector guy, to your point, willing to roll up his sleeves and give it up to protect our way of life and our freedoms and our country. And that's what we need.
Again, this is the Marine Corps flag. You know, we're not the brightest guys. You know, we still read comic books. But
well, and that's why I always wear my Air Force pin.
I just cannot imagine people being traitors to our own country. But I saw that in Vietnam when I came back, you know, got hit by eggs and spit on and all this by the hippies. And those are the people running the country now. You know, I just, it's so far over my head, Rodney. I've done a lot of stupid things, but I'm not a traitor to my country. And that's what they're doing. When Biden cut down that pipeline, everybody, all the greenies cheer. Well, they just set inflation in motion because, you know, oil provides food and fuel, gasoline. But that also increases the gap between the rich and the poor. Mm-hmm. So on record here, I own oil wells. You know, the greenies hate me, but where else they get the oil from? Me. So oil, when Biden cut the XL pipeline, Houston XL pipeline off, oil was $30 a barrel. Immediately went to $130 a barrel. So that was a 400% jump in my income but it screwed America. Why would he do that? Why would he screw our own country? Then why would he and Kamala blame Putin for it? Now, Putin has his own problems, but that war in Ukraine now is going to cause starvation all over the world. So I think there's something, this is why I have you on this program, is because if we don't enforce our laws and we let the left or the criminals or the commies run our law system and our school systems, we're finished.
Well, and they're doing it because they can and because no one's holding them accountable. And that's one of the interesting things, Robert,
Well, they should show up to your campaign, right?
I'll tell you, one of the things that's important about the 50 attorney generals, and you've seen it. Remember, Joe Biden tried to tell every business owner with over 100 employees in the country that they had to jab their employees with a needle. Remember? And it was attorney generals across the country, not just from Arizona, but across the country, that filed those lawsuits against the federal government to stop that from happening. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and these Democrats in Congress, they proposed legislation to look at every single bank transaction for individuals with over, $10,000 in their bank accounts. Illegal search and seizure. Who was the one that brought up that issue and made sure that they couldn't do it? The attorney general.
Which is why you say the attorney general's job is to protect you from the government.
From the government.
So this was another hot subject on this whole matter, which I don't know anything about. But there was a leak in the Supreme Court of Roe versus Wade. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think what I know
that's criminal.
Is that the Democrats are getting the Supreme Court confused with the court of public opinion. And I think the strategy was
something. How did that happen?
I believe it was an intentional Democrat leak to put pressure on the court to change their draft decision to restore rights back to the states. That's what overturning Roe v. Wade does. It restores the rights where they belong back to the individual states. Roe v. Wade, just like we were talking earlier about qualified immunity, Roe v. Wade was never law, just like qualified immunity is law. It was a legal precedent. A bunch of judges got together and decided that they were going to act like legislators and passed a ruling. And what this new Trump appointed, and I'll say it again because I like saying it, Trump appointed Supreme Court. Doesn't it have a nice ring to it? Yeah. The Trump appointed Supreme Court. What they said in their draft opinion and what we're hoping they're going to say in their final opinion is no, that the Supreme Court does not legislate. This goes back to the states and the individual states who can determine individually how they're going to protect the lives of both the born and unborn citizens of their states, because this is not something that the Supreme Court should have done.
So what did Roe v. Wade do?
The Roe v. Wade tried to create law around the issue of abortion and take that right away from the states to pass their own laws. In Arizona, we have a rich tradition in Arizona of being pro-life. In fact, in 1873, the territorial legislature of Arizona passed an outright prohibition on abortion. It was codified in 1901. That's the law of the land. Recently, our Arizona state legislature, just a few weeks ago, passed a law signed by the governor that prohibits abortion except in cases of medical emergency after 15 weeks, because it's the state who's supposed to pass those kinds of laws. Each state's supposed to pass those kinds of laws.
So are people trying to take the right of abortion away?
The law, depending on the state, will be determined by each legislature. And what Roe v. Wade really did was said, what the overturning of Roe v. Wade will do is it will restore rights, making decisions about those rights to the states. The danger of activist courts, like you saw when they didn't throw 208 off the ballot, the doubling of our income taxes here, or when you saw a former Supreme Court trying to pass laws under the guise of legal precedent like Roe v. Wade, is once again you have the wrong branch creeping, the judiciary branch creeping in and trying to act like legislators. These people that are appointed by a governor, by the president, whoever it is, these appointed officials, not hired, not accountable to you, the voter and the taxpayer, these judges trying to pass laws through their robes. And that's very dangerous. It's very dangerous for the future of our country.
Well, Rodney, thank you for like I said, I've ever since my poor dad ran for lieutenant governor of the state of Hawaii as a Republican, I said, I'm not going to get involved with this. I'm just going to stay a capitalist and stay outside the system, except when it comes to zoning laws. And that's where I talked to my friends in government to get my zoning changed because it affects the price of my property. But other than that, I'm pretty irresponsible for the bigger picture thing. But I'm glad I went to your fundraisers. I do support, full disclosure, I do donate to you. I don't donate to the characters. But I was not educated until you stood up in your campaign talks and educated people. What does the Attorney General do? And I understand more now, and I thank you for running for office, for the courage, for your family, for this country, and for our neighborhood. But anyway, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate your support.
Good luck in the election. Thanks. And we will be right back with Final Words with Sarah. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Today we're talking with my friend here, Rodney Glassman. He's also my neighbor and the candidate for Attorney General for the state of Hawaii. Arizona. Attorney General for the state of Arizona. Why am I saying that? State of Arizona. And the Attorney General's office is the biggest law firm in the state. And most of the guys running for the Attorney General's office they've never run a law firm
and never worked in the private sector.
I know, and they don't have my interest as a private citizen. So that's why I'm supporting you. But the most important thing is your campaign. Where you're raising capital, you do a very good job of educating people first, which is why you're sitting here. So congratulations. Good luck to you. What's your website again?
It's RodneyGlassman.com, and my job as Attorney General is to protect you from the government.
Well said. Well said.
Do we want to talk about where that came from?
Well, where did that come from, Rodney?
I'm very fortunate because after my wife had given me her blessing to run for this important job, because it's going to protect our way of life, I called you and asked you if you'd invest some time in a drink. And I spent about 20 minutes explaining to you why this was such an important job. And you said, you got 12 words or I'm lost.
How did that evening go? Do you mind sharing how that drink?
I was up practically for the next 24 hours, and you were kind enough to we went back texting, how about this, how about that? We texted back and forth, remember, to the early hours of the next morning, because it concerned me because you were right. You need for a job, for the most powerful elected office in the state and for the most powerful elected offices in the country, to be able to be articulated in just 12 words as a positioning statement was a problem. And you were wonderful.
Again,
and you helped me get there.
Flag here.
He said, I'm a Marine. It has to be simple.
It has to fit between there and there. I mean, because if it doesn't fit, I can't remember a thing.
And it did. And what you helped me do and articulate really is that it's not just about the federal government. The reality is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are there trying to destroy our way of life, but it was the state governments that shut down the businesses. It was the local governments that are trying to attack our police. It's the school districts that are trying to attack our kids. And so you, with your feedback and support early on, helped me articulate in just 12 words what this job is about, and it's about protecting people from the government, all levels of government. So I'm very appreciative of you.
Thank you. Your fundraisers are interesting. I mean, they're very educational. And I think that's why we brought you on the Rich Dad Radio Show. Yeah, and I agree, because our goal through this show and through Robert's books and games is to keep complicated, or to take complicated matters, the economy, the global macro economy, and keep them simple so the average person can understand. And I think that's why he was naturally drawn to that and really kind of forced you to get to those 12 words, because at the end of the day, the average person doesn't understand a lot, and they understand protect me from the government. So I thought that was spot on. And that's what's inside their heart and soul right now. Right. It's the issue. Yeah. Final word, Sarah. What do you think? I just appreciate your time, and thank you for coming on. And it was a fascinating discussion, and hopefully we get you back on again once you win
Attorney General.
Well, worst of all, if he wins and doesn't keep his word, he'll be back on.
I'll keep my. We're living these
regardless.
issues.
How's that?
I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and thank you also at the Rich Dad Radio Show.